Hey, hey, hey. All right. New podcast episode where my audio quality isn't terrible. All right. Welcome, everybody, to John Dudley Speaks, the podcast, the show, the series, the musical. That's what they should call it, right? You know, we should just change the name of the podcast after I've published it already. What do you guys think? Don't all jump at once. Oh my god. That was such a roaring crowd response. All right. I'm going to stop wasting time because the last podcast episode with the terrible audio quality. Remember, it was terrible audio quality. This one has better audio quality. They might be the same to you, who knows? You might listen to it and be like, "John, why'd you get a worse mic? What is wrong with you? Can't you find something that connects to your computer without it making you sound like you're underwater?" All right. Good start, everybody. So we're going to be talking about Nathan Fielder today. And, you know, if you guys have been following my Substack series on Nathan, 3-week series, you know, I didn't want to go too long with it because there's really not too much to pull out of 3 series. I didn't want to drag it out too long. But before we get there, just some news, some things going on real quick that I'm going to get into. Anybody see the Roadhouse trailer for Amazon Prime? Jake Gyllenhaal? Because that looks awesome. I'm just going to say right now, Roadhouse, movie of the year, movie of the century, movie of the lifetime. I'm saying it right now. Could be. But Roadhouse, the remake, reboot maybe. Looks like it's supposed to be like Jake Gyllenhaal is playing the son of Patrick Swayze, but it looks great. I gotta say, no bullshit. Looks actually really great. I'm very excited to see what they do with the fight scenes. It looks like it's gonna be a lot more heavy action blockbustery type deal than most remakes go. I think they're gonna make it a lot more focused on the fight scenes, especially with him being like a retired UFC fighter. It's gonna be cool to see Jake Gyllenhaal in the action genre again. But yeah, apparently Jake did have some other news. Here's an addendum to the Roadhouse news. Apparently Jake caused an indie film to break down because he would get into the frozen sea at random and just be like, "When I see the sea, I jump in the sea," or something like that, something stupid. He was trying to like demand the script be like changed and rewritten like half the time. And yeah, and honestly, I hear that and I'm like, yeah, a guy like Jake Gyllenhaal, that tracks. The man that All Too Well was written about, of course he's gonna be neurotic and nonsensical. Are you kidding me? Does Taylor lie? Does Taylor Swift lie in her songs? No, of course not. Never. Not once. Not even an embellishment. No. What do you guys think is going to happen when she writes the first song about Travis Kelce? When's that going to happen? It's going to be soon, right? They're going to get engaged soon. I'm hearing the rumors. People are saying it's going to be like, we're going to have a huge economic boom because she's going to have a baby with Travis next year or something, or 2025 or whatever. That is next year. Oh my God. We're already in 2024. This is weird. It just feels like it shouldn't be a year. It just feels like it's too far in the future. Sounds too futuristic for it to actually be a year. I'm getting off track. I need to stop. All right. Other news. Mark Mylod from Succession is going to helm some episodes from the director's chair for season 2 of The Last of Us, which is awesome. I think a huge decision being made by HBO to really fill that show with even more talent than it already has. I think if they're trying to bank on The Last of Us being the flagship program for HBO right now, that's a very good decision. Get some other heavy hitters in there. I heard Kate Herron, who directed Loki season 1, is also going to be in the mix for The Last of Us. Same director of Long Long Time from season 1 is coming back. So really, really good news. It seems like, I think they are missing something. I think they are missing Sam Levinson to add, a ton of unnecessary sex scenes and just very brutal imagery. That's what HBO does, right? Euphoria, The Idol. I'm not going to speak on Euphoria. I actually think Euphoria is quite good, but yeah, they're not going to get a second season of The Idol. It's kind of sad. You think what that could have been, but I could sit here and mourn The Idol season 2 all day. 'Cause I'm a freak, yeah. I need to stop. I really need to stop. Guys, it's Friday when I'm recording this. And I'm just in a good mood. I'm in a good mood. I'm also in a good mood because Daredevil Born Again is going to have Nelson, Murdoch, and Paige all back together. It's almost like Marvel heard us saying, hey, you're killing them off? That's stupid. And they decided to go against it. So that is all good news. Hopefully Marvel keeps making better decisions and stops being stupid. So, but you can't control everything as a fan. All we got is Deadpool 3 this year. So we'll see. Man. Let's get into the episode. Let's do it. All right. Guys, Nathan For You, I rewatched it. It totally hits. It's so good. One of the aspects of self-help comedy that I think can often be a little off-putting is like the voice of it, but like I just love how like blatantly silly Nathan For You is. So, getting into the first post of this Substack series, I want to talk about The Plan. And yes, that is The Plan from Nathan Fielder. How he comes up with these convoluted business ideas that I think, are meant to mimic like the regular business plan that you would have, but like have that little tweak of something so absurd. I'm wondering, out of all of them, what was the most insane one? I watched 4 seasons in like 2 weeks, so I was just like racing through them, trying to write about it, take some notes, and but looking back on it, I would have to say the first one that really like drove me up a wall was like how is this practical in any way? How does this like make sense for a business decision? This is clearly just a bit. Was what was it? Goat in the Water, for sure. I think the funniest thing about that is just him, putting in the clause in the non-disclosure agreements that if they don't meet these conditions and terms, that they'll be, punished with the death penalty, which is just insane in its own right. But it's right after that gets me every time, is when he says, my lawyer told me that it's not enforceable, but I left it in there just to show everybody how serious I was. It's just, I think that was the moment when I was watching this show where I was like, oh, so he's like, this is just, it's not just fully silly, but it's fully silly, but knows that it's fully silly, because there's the first few episodes where it's uniformly like put together such a nice compact way. It's, if you don't know Nathan Fielder, like just starting off that show, you kind of think, oh, maybe it's just this like Comedy Central gag. It's not really highbrow or meant to be highbrow, but it's just meant to have fun. But it was at that moment when I saw that joke be played out in front of me, I was like, oh, so this is something else entirely. Like he knows the bit that he's trying to pull off, and he also knows that we're gonna fall for it. But he also doesn't realize how viral these kinds of things are gonna go. And that's why I love the dumb Starbucks episode so much. It's just like, how do you come up with something that silly without like just completely, just being willing to be vulnerable and just come across as an asshole? Because you kind of do. Like at some point you're going to end up, if you're doing some kind of parody, someone's going to get offended, right? Which is like the whole, I think he does a great job of just establishing for the audience, like the Nathan character is kind of not only an idiot, but a loser. And that's okay, but he's willing to do that in public settings. Like the whole, I'm not afraid. Like I needed to, like prove to the area that I was like I was known for doing like parody comedy. So I just got up there and sang like, I'm not afraid to grab my balls. Everybody come grab my balls. Like that kind of thing. And it's just, you look at him doing that and you initially think like, oh, this whole plan is so silly. It's only for the purpose of making me laugh at how ridiculous this man is. Like that feels like that's the whole impetus behind him doing that. But I don't know, as I kept watching the show, especially the dumb Starbucks episodes, but even the hero or the anecdote, these convoluted plans where he ends up gaining some kind of virality, it ends up being so much more along the lines of, and I wouldn't even say satire or black comedy. It just feels like something else that exists outside of the form. And it's definitely something that he ended up pushing in the rehearsal and in the curse, especially. Like he really bent the form in terms of this style of comedy, but it's really hard to put your finger on because it's such a simple setup. And like I said in the Substack article, such a simple setup in lesser hands, like in the hands of like a comedian that's like straight shooter, like, I'm not gonna like have an ironic self-aware tilt, and I'm also not gonna like indulge in the uncomfortable bits. In the hands of like a straightforward comic, like it would be funny. Like the plan of selling poo flavored yogurt would be funny, but coming from Nathan and coming from his awkward delivery and how he's kind of like dressing down people to get them to see what they'll do, like a social experiment, it doesn't really come off as comedy to me. It comes off as more like DIY, I don't know, like observation based. I don't want to say humor because that's just it's just comedy, but it's this observation based social experiment. I want to say, like, it feels like he's doing it for the purpose of like seeing how far he can bend the Nathan persona to show, what it is that other people would do in response to his chaotic behavior. So when you have him, doing the rebate hike, having people rebate, or hike all the way up to get their rebate, put it into a box on the top of a mountain. It's really this endurance test. Maybe that's what I'm trying to find here. Sorry, I'm going, on a huge tangent, but that's what you get. It's called John Dudley Speaks for a reason. It's not John Dudley's Quiet, the podcast. That was a bad joke. I'm gonna stop. I've been saying that the entire podcast. I'm gonna stop, and then I keep on going. So you shouldn't trust me. But yeah, what was I saying? Nathan really, I think, pushes the buttons of people, and I think this is just him in general, pushes the buttons of people on purpose to elicit reactions. Like, that's the whole setup. That's the whole idea for Nathan For You, especially. And it just happens to fall into that space where some people might find this funny, some people might find this stupid, or some people might just genuinely be offended by it. There's some things I was watching in The Curse even where I was like, man, this kind of would be offensive to some people. Or Nathan For You, I can, pick off of five different things that he does in the show that you show him to a sample size, get 20 people. I guarantee about 10 of those people will find it funny. 10 of those people would be like, why is he doing that? That's upsetting, and I have heard in interviews that that's what he aims for, is the polarizing aspect of it. Because if you can sit in that area of comedy, that's where you're drawing the most reactions to it. Is when you're offending as much as you are causing people to hysterically laugh. I look at him replacing, what was it, the failed idea that he did of, a kid is mourning his dog, so he gets a message beyond the grave to the kid, and it's from the dog, but the dog is voiced by an actor, and his voice just does not line up with, obviously any voice would not line up, but the kid's reaction is so funny. But I could definitely see people looking at that that's too far. You're playing with an actual kid, or or what is it, the soundproof box for your children, so when you go on vacation you can have sex and put your kids in a box so that you can enjoy yourselves and not have to worry about the kid. I was I could definitely see someone taking issue with him having a full-fledged group thing going on while there's a kid in there. It's so, it borders on so ridiculous that it's funny, but also so ridiculous that it's edgy. So he finds this little balance between where the tone feels still positive, because it's okay this is happening, because Nathan knows that the Nathan character is kind of a piece of shit. And I think it's that awareness that he has about himself and how he does this that makes Nathan For You such a potent watch, especially on rewatch. Because when you're watching it at first, it's very silly. But something like I Love You, the exchange when he does that, you watch that on a second time and you're like, wait, that's not really played for a bit. That's kind of, busting the facade a little bit of the Nathan character, where he's, drilling home this idea of I want you to be connected to me, to the actress. And I also want you, the other actor, to follow my lead. So I feel like he buttons these jokes really well. That's what he's always done really well. But then it's so unique how he's able to pull genuine feelings out of real people, first of all, and seeing how they reflect on his face too. It's almost a precursor to the rehearsal and how he's able to draw that emotion out of someone. When he draws that emotion out of someone, it's almost like you think that the terrible Nathan character may have the capacity to change, or may have the capacity to internalize what he felt and then operate on that in an effective way. But I don't know. I think the point is that he won't, because this is not a narrative-based show. He's not going to be like continuously seeking that. But there's little breadcrumbs of where he's genuinely trying to, like, this Nathan character is trying to find a connection. So it blurs the lines between, like, is Nathan this guy or is he just playing this up? And you never know. I think that's the thing with, the best art that you're going to find is, like, you're never going to know for real. And I think just the setup of it being a DIY business self-help show from one of Canada's top business school grads, like, it comes off as this pastiche, of those kinds of shows, of like parody. But it's really, you strip that away from it, strip that element from it. Really, what do you have? You have pretty much what he did in the rehearsal and then what he flipped upside down in the curse. And that's why I approached all three of these as like a 3-week series, is because each one feels like a specific art installation, right? It feels like how a director, Tarantino has 9 movies and they make it a big deal about each one when it comes out. Anytime Jay-Z drops an album, that is a big deal. Like, I feel like Nathan Fielder is going to be one of those comedians where every time he drops a project that has created by Nathan Fielder in its name, it'll necessitate like a whole like dense evaluation and analysis over what that specific piece is supposed to represent. So, take for instance, Jesse Armstrong, for instance, I think is a good television creator that is like a parallel to that. You have Succession, which everybody for the last 5 years has been trying to understand, like, what is the general point? What are we trying to say about these characters? And then that finale hits and you're like, oh, that's it, right? But you can't really do that with a Nathan Fielder show because he doesn't extend it past, like, well, I guess Nathan For You he did, but with the rehearsal and with the curse to a larger extent, it's just like expanding these themes as much as they can into further ideas that invite the idea of symbolism into the conversation, which I think is it's meant to be a deconstruction of television structure. So like, talking about the rehearsal, I don't think he intended the rehearsal to be what it ended up being. I think human nature actually surprised him a lot, and you get to see that on his face a lot of the time in that. It becomes a learning experience for him, but I genuinely think he went into it thinking, oh, this would just be like Nathan For You, but dealing with personal life things, dealing with, telling your significant other you're pregnant or something like that, like some kind of major life moment or milestone. He probably wanted to exacerbate the politics of those kinds of conversations. And I really think it turned out in a way that I think changed his view on how his comedy and how his setups impact the lives of the other people. Like you see it when it comes to Angela, first and foremost. Angela is, well, first of all, I think I think Angela is one of the people that is likely an opportunist, like likely use this as a means to, I don't know, try and spread her message, whatever it was. She seemed very religious, and I think, you know, with the conflicts that she and Nathan had when it came to religion, it just, upon rewatch, Angela looks a lot more like, and this could be the editing, because that's also another facet of it, is that Nathan can use the editing to whatever advantage he wants to portray a person however he wants. So maybe he was the shitty person when it came to their dynamic. Maybe she was the shitty person. Who knows? And that's kind of the point. But I don't know, there's just like bits of the edit where you see like maybe she's not here for the parenting. She's maybe here for, I don't know, like she has a certain worldview and she wants to project that onto whatever situation's going on. Or maybe she needed money, like something like that. And I feel like that confusion that we're thrown by Nathan, like very early on, I think that's like, that's very much his own confusion at the situation. Like we feel disoriented by like what she's doing, anything that happens around Angela, or like the kid situation, like all the child actors, anything revolving around them is, genuinely unpredictable. Whereas you can have goalposts set for the other things that he planned, and then it's just kind of the matter of like decision making. What is Patrick going to do in this situation regarding his, regarding the grandfather's fortune? What is, what's the guy's name? The guy in the first episode. What is he going to do? If like his friend, it actually has a problem with him lying about his education, right? I think genuinely that was supposed to be the setup, but because Angela's strong personality pushed his boundaries a little bit and he had to step in, I think he found an opportunity to be like, well, maybe that's not what the rehearsal is, and maybe I don't even know what the rehearsal is. So that's why it's just such an interesting, formless kind of show where you really can't nail it down as comedy. I mean, sure, there's like really funny lines in there, like was it the like it's days like these I curse the Chinese for inventing gunpowder. It's like that kind of stuff that Nathan does that injects this like very ironic kind of humor that it allows for the show to have like a lighter tone. And we'll talk about more of this when it comes to the curse, but like in a darker context, or in a context that's a lot more assimilated with realism, that kind of stuff doesn't work. It comes off as like cringe. It comes off, but like not the kind of cringe humor that you would expect. It's more like just general cringe, general like pitch black discomfort. Like someone says that in a tone that's not heightened to that level, it's not going to match, and it leads to that dissonance between tone and dialogue, right? And character, for that matter. But the rehearsal, he keeps that tone like very much the same as he did with Nathan For You, because it was like, I believe at least, the intention was to make a Nathan for You, but for personal life stuff. So that's why I think, with it being so heightened, that's why I think the emotional things that happen in the show end up hitting so hard and feel so ridiculous at the same time. Like, you can't forecast that one of the child actors is going to grow to think that you're his father. Like, you can't predict something like that. You can predict like what maybe like a business owner is going to respond to. Like, you could do like a whole web of like, if I propose this is what their reactions could be, and then whatever the unpredictability lies in like the decisions that come after. Like, that's where the comedy thrives. That's the show. But in the rehearsal, he's dealing with so much more abstract feelings. So you really can't predict how humans are going to handle particular conversations, because it's not in our nature to all be uniform on something that has to do with our personal lives. All of us are going to have so many worldviews and core beliefs that we're throwing back into our own perception of what's happening in our personal lives. So it's not as like black and white as like a business decision. And I think he just didn't know that was going to be an issue for a lot of these things. And I think on some level he did know that it would be an issue for these kinds of things, and it would lead to comedy, and it would lead to discomfort. It would lead to his brand of DIY cringe humor. But I think the resulting effect is so much more potent because he's getting to explore his own Nathan character again, but beyond the kind of the shading that he gave it in Nathan for You, he's able to do it in a lot more of a thoughtful way, rather than kind of giving us glimpses of like, oh, this Nathan guy, he's just lonely, and that's why he's like, pitching, hanging out, or with like a random at a random like auto shop customer, and I think that's such an intriguing setup for a show that I genuinely don't think he could recreate the mystique behind that ever again. Like, if he does rehearsal season 2, which I'm sure he will, he's going to have to, I don't think he can repeat the same process, right? He can do another rehearsal, but he's going to have like another theme around that. The theme of Nathan for You was a lot more based off of, perception versus reality. And the theme, with the rehearsal was that, he's dealing with not only the ethical quandaries of his whole rehearsal, which is like a whole separate issue, but I think the central point of the rehearsal is that you cannot forecast what is going to be important to another person. And I think that he is so bitter about that in The Curse that you get to see what that flip side looks like if the tone were not matching that heightened sense of vulnerability that you get in the rehearsal, because it is a heightened vulnerability. It is designed for dramatic effect, because like that's what the rehearsal is supposed to be. It's supposed to be grand. But then you take one look at the Curse, and it's like, it's a lavish production. It looks gorgeous. And by the way, I'm moving on to The Curse now. So I got a thing in front of me. So like, if it doesn't seem clear that I'm moving, topic to topic, just know I'm reading a thing in front of me. But yeah, I realized I didn't preface that. Yeah, I'm kind of going stream of consciousness with this, so we'll get more of a format as we go. But yeah, I'm moving on to The Curse now. The Curse, in comparison to the rehearsal, I feel like it's such an inversion of what the rehearsal, and to a lesser extent Nathan For You, like offers up on a thematic scale. Because prior to 2022, Nathan was seen as like a cringe comic, right? He was seen as this guy that does like gag interviews at movie premieres, or like he's seen as this guy who's like a staple of Comedy Central, who randomly will do something that is like extraordinary and boundary pushing. Like that's I think what the perception of him was. But I think that perception really changed after the rehearsal was able to like extremely unbalance what the form is when it comes to like a DIY reality based kind of type of show. Like it's not really reality based. There's so many narrative elements to it. But they're all under the guise of this self-help aesthetic and self-help setup basically. But like when you hit the curse, it's a narrative base, but I feel like he still throws reality-based elements into the fold, even though these are all actors, whereas like the other two definitely not actors throughout the whole thing. But it's like this blurring that I feel like is the opposite of Jury Duty. Like Jury Duty, great show by the way, totally should watch, amazing watch, so funny. James Marsden is hilarious, but Jury Duty is very much like we got one guy who's a real guy, everybody's actors, and we're doing like a bunch of crazy stuff around him, and we're just trying to see how he reacts, how does he become a better person for all these types of throughout all these types of situations. And I feel like Nathan takes that into a more like sardonic tone instead of like trying to enliven the viewer's perception of the people. It's more about like how can we view these people in a negative context based off of their response to certain situations. And then he proves himself wrong because these people end up doing something extraordinary or like completely something out of the way that they didn't expect, producers didn't expect, and it counterbalances his whole approach to try and expose people for doing negative things. So it ends up making him look like an asshole, which is kind of the point. The rehearsal does the same kind of thing. But the curse is so interesting. It might be one of the best shows I've watched in a long time, because it takes that narrative aspect, takes the fact that they're all actors in this one, but then just has that little piece that makes it feel like if this were a reality show, these would be the people that Nathan's trying to expose. These are the people that Nathan is trying to get you to see him as, almost. And it just feels like this gigantic refutation of his own work in a way. Is just like, hey, maybe what I did with these actors, or not actors, with these extras when I was fooling them about a certain thing and tricking them, defrauding them into paying for some product, maybe that wasn't cool. Maybe it wasn't cool for me to play with the emotions of a 6-year-old kid because I'm using him as an actor for my weird setup of this woman becoming a parent, which she's like clearly not all that interested in. Maybe that was a little fucked up. And I love how Benny and Nathan, because Benny Safdie, co-director, co-creator of The Curse, I'm very big fan of his work so far. Good Time and Uncut Gems are really stressful to get through. But so I was wondering, like, how is he going to fit in this fold? Because Benny Safdie is a lot more atmospheric, right? Nathan has a very patented brand of DIY humor, but the perception of him has changed since the rehearsal. It's a lot more like, oh, highbrow, like we're doing existential deliberations on life, but with silly comedy as the base. But when you invert that and then add a dark tone and kind of this atmospheric, ghostly, almost like voyeuristic view into fictional characters' lives, almost as if they're real, and we're kind of getting a glimpse of what their real life is like. That's where, like, I think the curse like lives in this, it's apt. It lives in a very cursed kind of a setting in space in television where, like, these people are trying to be so altruistic and forward thinking, and they're all about the green initiatives, which I get. There's a lot of people in this world that are like that, but I think the way they're going about it is designed to show you that they're not really doing anything, right? Their belief is that they are doing something, but they're doing nothing because everything that they're doing is for themselves. And I think that's a direct meta commentary on how Nathan views his own work. Like, Nathan may see like people commenting about the rehearsal like, oh my God, look what he did with this piece of work. Like, look at how he was able to deeply analyze, and I'm using quotation marks, like deeply analyze and, break down the human condition. And he probably looks at that as like, well, that's not what I was doing. I maybe feel like I did something else, and maybe I've caused harm to other people. So why don't I take the people that are in this show and make them come off the way that I feel about this, or feel I should be perceived about this. And I could be completely wrong. He could be completely like on the side of like what I did was awesome and what I'm doing on this is awesome too, and they're not interrelated or anything. But I genuinely feel like there's like an intertextual communication between the rehearsal and the curse, where like everything that happens to Asher, and I'm not going to give anything away because I do recommend this show. I think it's fantastic, and I think anybody should watch it. Actually, I feel like it would cause division. It would cause a lot more division than any other shows that Nathan has done. But I think it's a fascinating piece of art that genuinely asks very difficult questions about, like, what are we doing to give back to the community if we're like saying that we're giving back to the community, but we're doing it from the lens of, well, this is my dream. This is my dream, or I'm like rebelling against what my parents believe, so I'm going to do this. It's really not in service of anything but myself, but I don't see it that way because of like the proof that I have that I've touched people's lives. And I feel like that's what Whitney is supposed to embody, is that she is, she's the green queen, as they say. Like she's all about these passive homes, but she's not willing to go past the surface to excavate like the true moral problems that are lying there. She's willing to rebut anything about her parents being slumlords, right? But she like jumps to that defense very quickly for herself, right? But she's not, I don't think, willing to see her artist friends. I forget her name. Kara, I think it's Kara. She's not willing to see her perspective through a different, like, refined perspective, that she should have. It's more like she sees her, like, Kara's art and perspective on art and how it should be used within the community as like this attack on her and her artistry and her way of trying to progress the area forward. She sees it as this like well, if you're not going to, you know, position yourself, position your art and your release of the art to the public of this area or to my homes or whatever, if you're not going to like sanction it in a way that works with my vision, and like then I think that you're at odds with me, basically. And she more or less says that in the show. And I think that, along with, you know, the running joke about the chicken and the curse itself, and also the ending, which is batshit insane. I'm not going to spoil it for you because you got to watch it. It is absolutely one of the weirdest things I've ever seen on television. But like, couple those things, like the curse and like the chicken running bit and Dougie's wife, and put all those things together, and what you're left with is like, this accursed type tone. It's a very like mystifying, haunting tone, intentionally, because the show is called The Curse. It's supposed to have some kind of element to that, and that's Benny Safdie's doing with like the atmosphere that you're getting from it. But like, it still feels like this interstitial media satire, commentary, that it's almost like, oh, he believes all of these things. Nathan believes that all of these things should be happening to these people. And he gets us to think that until he shows us like what good they could be capable of. But then you think about the good that they're capable of, and you're like, is that self-serving? Is that subservient to, like, is that something that is actually going towards the goodwill of the general community, or is that something to make them, feel better about their own decision making? Like a tonic for them, so that they can swallow the awful things they've done by saying that they did something good. And that's where I think the show really thrives the most, is because, like, yeah, sure, you can go the extra mile. Like, Nathan's trying to like make a point with his micro penis or whatever. Like, and they're trying to make a point about, like, yeah, he's shining the light on himself. He doesn't think he's all that great. Everybody's saying he's the best comedian of his generation when it comes to this style, but he doesn't think that same thing. That's like on a general broad level. But I think when you cobble all of the the chicken illusions and the the stuff with Nala, the stuff with Dougie, when it came to like how he lost his wife, and just his inner torment, and his belief in curses as well. You get to this like supernatural plane in the show that I feel like is meant to like communicate to us what Nathan's worldview is on like karmic balance. So I think because of all this negativity thrown towards Whitney and Asher, like, they're trying their best to do the best for the people around them. Like Nathan maybe has that intention in Nathan For You in the rehearsal. He's doing something for entertainment, but also doing it for maybe trying to bring the good out of other people, to show that he's like, his type of person that he's portraying is bad. Like, The Curse takes just that spotlight that he gives himself in those two shows, and then just says, what if the universe like reclaimed all of that, that feigned positive energy that you gave out to other people that you felt good about, but maybe necessarily like they could have taken what you did as offensive or as cruel, as self-serving. And it's just like, it's almost like Nathan believes like, oh, I'm deserving of this kind of payback or haunting because of my inability to see past my own needs, which is entertainment. It's so interesting. There's so much I could talk about this for a long time. You know that. Oh my God, we're already at 50 minutes. But yeah, that's, and first of all, or not first of all, because I've been talking forever. Last but not least, Emma Stone, Oscar winner Emma Stone. Everyone, like, do I even need to say it? She's amazing in The Curse. Like I have to watch that Chris Nolan interview with Nathan and Benny, because I know they do talk about Emma Stone at some point. But Emma Stone is just marvelous, in the depths that she goes to prove to people that, like, she is kind of a terrible person. Not Emma Stone, her character. You probably knew that, but just the way I phrased it made it seem like, oh, like, Emma Stone's bad. No, Emma Stone's great. But yeah, it's just a very complicated show, very complicated person that Nathan Fielder is. And I think this is just, we're just going to see him continue to like hit on these very dense themes with different formatting for them. So, like, I'm not even sure the next thing that he does is a television show. I'm not even sure it could be a movie. Like, he could literally, he did that podcast with what's her name from I think Maddie from Euphoria. Like, anything that he touches at this point in his career, he can subvert the form in a way where people are going to watch it and gain some kind of meaning from it. So that doesn't mean he has to actually, like, stay within the medium. So I'm very interested to, excited especially to see what he does next. I'm sure the rehearsal season 2 is going to be coming soon, but whatever he does outside of that purview, and Nathan and Benny Safdie for that matter too, whatever they do outside of that purview, it could be very polarizing, even more so than this, 'cause depending on whatever subject they're trying to hint at, whatever satire they're trying to hit themselves with. It'll definitely be funny. But all right, I'm gonna move on before we run out of time. Let's see. Am I gonna do a line delivery of the week? My line delivery of the week was probably, you guys can look this up. I tried doing it last time on YouTube. Maybe wait. I'll try it. I'll try it this time. See if I can get my mic to. Let's see. Yeah, line delivery of the week. You guys just look it up, but I can't find a good clip of it. But it's when Nathan says to the medium, or like the realtor, that he's gonna make a ghost realtor. He says, "Wait, a ghost choked you in Switzerland?" Just kills me every time, because you can tell he had no idea that was going to be said, and he breaks a little character in that moment, and it's fantastic. So yeah, look up ghost realtor, Nathan for you, and you'll find some of the funniest things you've ever seen. Highly recommend. But speaking of recommendations, before we hang up, I got a few recs here, but got a rec from a friend of mine. She's been ecstatic about this one. I think she finished it all already, but I'm on the first episode. But The Brother's Son is brilliant, starring Michelle Yeoh, Oscar winner. It's this combination of slick, quirky, sappy. It's like a lot of comedy, but also action and a little stylized kind of tone and setup. It's very consistently entertaining. It's just fun. TV just, we need to get back to an era where there's like a show that comes out and we're like, hey, that was a lot of fun, wasn't it? Like, yeah, I just feel like a lot of shows are trying to be everything, especially in the post Disney Plus era. Everybody's trying to like swing for the fences for that next big thing. Ever since, Game of Thrones ended too, like there's always that big just play to get the new big streamer, like a winning comedy or a winning like a winning drama or something, whatever. But yeah, The Brother's Son is just a good show. It's just a very well produced, well made show with excellent fight choreography, great acting. It's really funny. It's got a nice goofy aura about it, but also like it gets serious when it needs to. It's got that mob feel to it. And Michelle Yeoh kicks ass. So yeah, highly recommend this show. It's fantastic. And then not last but not least, I got two more recs. The Ted Show is fucking great. I didn't think I'd be saying that, but it is fucking great. Oh my God. Was Seth saving his best jokes for this? Because like, there's some jokes in here that I was rolling on the floor laughing. I'm like, this is just as good as like prime era Family Guy, and it's kind of like this is exactly what I would expect a live action Family Guy to be like. So yeah, I highly recommend it. Ted is great. Please go give it a stream. Support the Ted Hive. Ted fans unite. Ted 2 was terrible though. Like, don't watch Ted 2 unless I'll watch it again. I'll watch it just for the F. Scott Fitzgerald joke, because that joke still kills. But then last recommendation, you know me, I'm a Marvel guy. Echo. It's good. I'm only one episode in. It's interesting how they were able to make this. It seems like it was edited to pieces. It's a little wobbly, but has that rugged street level Marvel feel to it. So I'm sure it's going to get back up on its feet, and it'll have those starts and stops, I'm sure. Especially because this is a show that was probably going to be backgirdled, basically. Like, I think Marvel was going to get rid of it completely, and here it is. And all 5 episodes. I'm sure they cut down one of them because budget concerns, and didn't have enough it didn't have enough connectivity or something like that. Like, the Marvel is in shambles right now, so it's really hard to tell what their decision making is based out of. But all I can say about that is Echo is a good show. You should watch it, give it a chance. And it's separate from a lot of the Marvel stuff, so you'll be able to watch this and be like, oh, like, so that's Hawkeye, cool. That's Daredevil, cool. Wilson Fisk, whatever. Like, And honestly, if you watch that and you're like, screw this, I don't want to watch all these characters, watch Daredevil again, because that show kicks ass. One of the best of that Netflix era. I am getting off track again. Sorry. Two skips, and then we'll hang up. So speaking of Marvel, What If? It's got some hits. I'll say the Die Hard episode was really fun, but it's just like there's some really bad writing in it. Like, the animation also just looks weird. I've heard other podcasters say this online, like, they just can't watch it because the animation style is just so, like, when it comes to the people, they look odd when they're talking or when they're moving, and I get that. It's not a very well designed show, and like, I liked What If season 1 for the most part. I just thought it fell short in terms of writing and pacing, because it's all 20-minute episodes, right? But What If season 2 just really did not do it for me. I've heard other people really like it, and to each their own, for sure. If you guys like it, you watch it, you might have a completely different opinion, and that's totally fine. That's totally cool. Like, I get why people would really like this. Actually, like, I just was not into it. The Sakaar stuff, like that Sakaar episode was really cool, but that was like a leftover from last season. But then, like, it's just, it throws me off when they do voice actors for like characters that are in universe, and it's just like it's not the same guy in the live action. Like I'm hoping Marvel can kind of rectify that a little bit more. They're just using Tony Stark so much, and it's like, yeah, we know that's not RDJ. Just like, can we get rid of the Tony Stark connection? We just try keep going back to 2012 Iron Man all the time. And it's, I don't know, it feels exhausting. It just feels like Marvel's like running out of ideas very quickly. Not me criticizing Marvel right after I praised it, but I think that shows you the state of flux they're in right now. But then last but not least, Scott Pilgrim takes off. I watched the anime. It's good, but I say skip it just because it's, the alternate timelines without Scott Pilgrim, because Michael Cera is absent for a lot of the show. It didn't really pull me in. I thought the writing was kind of like, I don't know, it was very tiresome to get through, and that was my problem with it. It was just, I feel tired. Like it felt like watching homework. I love everybody in it. The OG cast, like Chris Evans, Kieran Culkin, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, like everybody's great. I just wasn't into it. It didn't click with me, but it might click with you. So that's those are my recs and skips. But until next time, I'm John Dudley. John Dudley Speaks is the podcast, is the name, and stay tuned for some more podcasts coming up. I got a special guest for the next one that's coming out, so stay tuned for that. Stay tuned also, YouTube. I'm going to be updating some YouTube videos soon. So subscribe to @JohnDudleySpeaks on YouTube. There's nothing there yet, just a picture of me flashing the peace sign. But there's going to be some stuff soon. There's going to be a video. I'm editing right now, editing 2 videos. So it's going to be flowing on a constant basis. February is a big month for me. Hopefully, fingers crossed, getting a lot of stuff out there. But until next time, I'm your host, John Dudley, and this is the John Dudley Speaks podcast. I can't wait to hop on next time. So I still haven't figured out how to end these, so I'm gonna let the music play, and I will see you later. Bye.